WordPress is dead, cooked, and basically a legacy platform if you listen to what the internet is saying right now because of Mdash. This is a new Cloudflare product, which is basically a CMS that uses Astro. So let's take a real reality check, take a look at what this actually offers, and talk about how it stacks up against something like WordPress. So if you don't know, the TLDR is basically yesterday, April the 1st, Cloudflare introduced Mdash, the spiritual successor to WordPress. This has caused a ton of hype, especially the fact that you've got Matt and Matt being involved in it, and obviously other Matts being involved in the legacy product, WordPress. So there's obviously the hype train is kind of doing the rounds. And to be honest, it is the 2nd of April today, and unless the time zones are making a problem here, it's a product that's actually real. It is a very early product. It's a version 1 product. But in this video, I want to show you what's included in it, some of the things that I think are quite cool, and we'll round things up at the end about how I think this compares to something like WordPress and what benefits there may be to using something like this in your workflow in the future. So I'll link to the article down below. There's an absolute boatload of information there, which if you are interested, I would recommend reading through. I'm not going to go through all of this. I've read through most of it, or enough to actually make it interesting. Let's just jump in and actually take a look at the product. You can use the EmDash Playground, or you can deploy this to Cloudflare if you have Cloudflare yourself. You will have to have R2 as part of your account, not R2D2, obviously. And there is going to be a potential cost in this. You can use the storage for free for up to 10 gigabytes per month, but you do have to have a card on file. So just bear that in mind. But you can absolutely use the EmDash Playground to test this out and have a play about. So let's do just that. Let's use the EmDash Playground. So once you deploy it, you'll see this is kind of your homepage, your landing page, your starting point. As you can see, it's a typical kind of blog layout. There's your blog articles underneath. Click inside, go and take a look. And there's some information inside there, your typical blog, reading times, searches, and so on, your right-hand bar, etc., etc. You can see we're using the playground. This gives us about an hour to play about with before it kind of resets. So that's the kind of front end. It's using Astro, so creating your own design should be something that should be relatively straightforward if you're accustomed to working with Astro. But let's just jump into the admin and take a look at how this stacks up and compares to WordPress. So on first login, it tells you that you are operating as an administrator, which is fine because it's just a test thing. So we'll just say get started. So now we have a typical kind of WordPress layout. All your navigation on the left-hand side in black and your content overview in your dashboard in the main section. You got pages, posts, upload media, and so on. So nothing really too different. Let's jump into the pages and posts, for example. Let's look at the posts. You can see, because this is a playground, there's a bunch of posts inside here so we can see how it works. We can come in and take a look at any of these. And then we get a typical kind of WordPressy layout. There's some slight differences here. You'll see the first thing that's missing is Gutenberg, which for a lot of people is a godsend. For some others, maybe you want more control and functionality. I think this is kind of what we have to understand here at this point in time. This is V1. This is probably a MVP. This is a sort of minimum viable product. So people can get to grips with it, see what it's like, use it. If they like it, then we'll see new features roll out. Are we going to see page builders and things inside here? Only time will tell. I don't imagine we will anytime soon, because adoption, moving away from something like WordPress into something like Mdash, that's a big jump for a lot of companies, and there's pretty much no market at the moment for this. So I don't think we're going to see that anytime soon, unless Cloudflare buys out some other company to bring on board and create some kind of page builder experience. I mean, they bought Astro, they've created this. That may be their sort of ultimate goal, is to have everything contained on their Cloudflare account. So they handle the DNS, they handle the domain registration, hosting, security, your actual designs using Astro, your content management using Mdash. That may be the end goal. If it is, you can't really blame them. There's a lot of other companies doing very similar things out there. So anyway, let's take a look. You've got your typical kind of tiny MCE layout here. You can add your content in. You've got your excerpt. You've got your slug, the status. You can move it to the trash, any ownership. So you can assign this to a particular author. If you want to use bylines, create bylines, taxonomy, so your categories, your tags, SEO is built inside you, so you don't have to have a third-party SEO plugin. Now, speaking of plugins, one of the key things that this is aimed at, and if you read the article, you will see it, where WordPress has the obvious issue that we've seen, any WordPress user knows that plugins are basically a potential to have security problems and have problems with the code and stuff like that. This works in a slightly different way. If you come from a hosting background, you'll know that it's much better to have every website sort of self-contained in its own little part of your hosting plan and not everything bundled into one, compartmentalized as it were. This is using a similar approach. So your plugins, when you add them in, will be compartmentalized. So if something happens to a plugin, it shouldn't or couldn't or wouldn't or won't have an impact upon your website. So it increases the level of security that you have there. Again, this is all covered in that article, so I would recommend taking a look at that because it goes into a lot more detail. But that in itself is a real strong point for this moving forward, because we all know as WordPress users, security is one of those things that becomes a real issue when you start adding plugins and additional themes and so on into the mix. Okay, so that's basically posts. If you come into pages, basically the same kind of thing. You can come into a page and you basically get roughly the same kind of set of options. Your media, it's a media management platform. For some reason, you can't upload media into this playground. It doesn't actually allow that, but just think of it as being a very basic media library that you can upload and your images are there. You can't edit or do things like that. It's just basically a media library. Comments, as you would expect, this is where you'll see your comments, your menus and so on. So this is your primary navigation. You can create multiple menus inside here. If you want to set up redirects, again, something you would normally have third-party tools to handle, whether that's a dedicated part of your SEO plugin or a tool like ASE or something like that, where you can handle these. This is built in here. So again, these are all quite cool little functions that are built directly into the platform. Widgets, if you kind of go back to what we saw in WordPress several years ago before we started having Gutenberg, widgets are basically kind of little blocks of, or little tools you'd sort of drop into various different parts of your site. So your footer, your sidebar, and so on. So if you take a look at one of the posts, you can see you've got widgets down the right-hand side. So recent posts, tags, category search, and so on. So if you want to customize, move, edit, delete, whatever you want, all those options are here. So it's all pretty simple and self-explanatory. Like I say, it's all the things we've seen previously. If you want to add something in, you can add a content block in, for example, drag and drop that into your sidebar. You now have a content block, expand this out, content block, give it a name, add your content in there. It's pretty simple. Whether that's a good or a bad thing depends upon how you like to work. Some people like this method and wanted it back, and you can get plugins that allow you to get this back into WordPress. Other people prefer the way you can work with Gutenberg and full site editing and so on. Sections, you can create custom sections, so things like about an author, newsletter, sign up, and so on. Categories, as its name suggests, it's categories the same as what we've seen inside WordPress and probably most other CMS platforms, so that's pretty standard. Tags the same. Bylines, not really sure what bylines are actually for, but you know, it's not really important. Content types, though, this is quite cool. If we open this up, there's your posts and your pages. Just think of a very simple tool like advanced custom fields, but without all the bells and whistles like relationships and stuff like that. Really simple way of being able to create custom post types and stuff like that. So, for example, let's create a new content type. If we expand this out, you can see some basic settings here. So we'll just say, so let's just say books, for example. You'll see everything else is pre-filled out for you, which is quite nice. Your description, if you want to drop one in there. Your slug is already set up for you. You can set whether it supports drafts, revisions, preview, and search. We'll say, yep. We'll also say we want SEO inside there. And now we create our content type. So we'll say create. There's our new content type. So now what we can do is we can do things like enable comments, and we can start adding our fields in. So basically, there's no fields here whatsoever. We've got books over on the left-hand side. If we open this up, you see there's books. If we say create your first one, we can't create anything because we haven't actually created any meta fields for it. Unlike WordPress, which by default generally pulls in your title, description, featured image, none of that is created here. So you just basically do it yourself. So add first field, short text, book title, we'll say required, it needs to be unique and it is searchable. Drop in a minimum length and maximum length if you want to, and any regex patterns. We'll say add a field in. We'll add another field in. We'll say this is long text, call this book description, required and searchable. Add a field in, and let's add one more in just for good measure. We'll say image, and we'll just call this book cover, required, and add field. So now that's all auto-saved. So now if we go back into books, you'll now see that we've got a book title, description, and cover. So all those options are there. So creating your own custom post types, super quick and easy. Users, You can manage your users inside here. So if we open this up, you can see I'm set as an admin, but we do have all the same roles we've got inside WordPress, and some created information, passkeys. So if you were using this self-hosted, or you're hosting this yourself, not in the playground, then when you create everything, you've got passkeys set up. So it reduces the ability to get your site hacked and things like that, because it's kind of connected up to your password management tool. Like it or loathe it, it's all dependent upon you as a user, but it does add an additional level of security to your website, which again is something that is useful. You can invite users if you want to, and you can choose to what email address and what role you want to give them, and then you can send that invite out. Plugins. So if you want to add plugins, we don't add plugins in the same way that you would inside WordPress, where we've got a kind of repository. You have to do this through your astroconfig.mjs file, and that will extend Mdash's functionality. I haven't tried this myself, so I have no idea, A, if there are any plugins currently available, B, how easy it is to be able to add them in, and see how it actually operates in the real world. But again, these are all things we'll see as this potentially starts to mature. Then if you want to, you can import from your WordPress site URL. That could be quite cool. Have to check that out. And you can upload a WordPress export file if you want to in XML format. And finally, you've got your settings. So your things like your title, tagline, all things you've seen inside WordPress. Your post per page for reading and so on. I mean, it is very, very WordPress centric. I mean, there's no lying about that. It does have some additional features, like you say, like the SEO, be able to create content types, different way of handling sort of logins and registrations and plugins and so on. So there's some quite cool things here. You can see we can use API tokens. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of AI we'll be able to pull into this. If AI is going to be supported, that would be useful. We have also got security settings, so we can't actually control those inside the playground, but you will have additional controls inside you if when you deploy your own. So now we've taken an overview or a brief first look at Mdash. Let's kind of compare it to WordPress and the whole spiritual successor to WordPress. Let's be honest about it. They're doing that because this is going to generate a bunch of hype and get content creators like myself and other creators and also other platforms to be able to cover this and get a lot of coverage and really build up the hype machine. All kudos to them. It makes an absolute load of sense. It's free marketing, free advertising, free promotion, whether you give good, bad, or indifferent. But is it a successor to WordPress? Well, let's be brutally honest about it. No. And not anytime soon is it going to. Is it going to eat into the market share the way it is right now? No. It might take 0.0000001% for people that like to be on the bleeding edge of tools and experiment with things like this. Benefits it has, though. Astro, which is definitely on the hype cycle at the moment. It's fast, clean, and simple. So if you don't need all those options you have inside something like WordPress, this could be an interesting sort of experience and an interesting tool to try out and maybe even use it. The fact it's all tied into Cloudflare can be a good or a bad thing, depending upon if you're a Cloudflare user. How easy it would be, and can you take it off Cloudflare to self-host? Again, this is something that I haven't tried, but something that may be worth experimenting with as this moves forward. But the reality is WordPress is so established and so ingrained that even if it took a tiny minuscule percentage, it's going to make no real impact upon WordPress. WordPress has the ecosystem, it has the themes, developers, page builders, all those tools that make it probably the biggest and most advanced platform for building websites that's on the internet right now. But it is interesting. It is cool to see other tools out there. I'll be interested to see if they do take on a more page builder type experience by bringing either developers on board to build that out inside Mdash, or whether they actually purchase another company and take over their product and maybe modify it to bring it into the fold, as it were. But as always, I do welcome your thoughts and feedback. Do you think this is a good move by Cloudflare? Do you think this is just a bit of fun and they're not really going to make any impact? Drop a comment down below and let me know. I'd love to get your feedback. As always, all applicable links to this and the article I'm talking about will be down in the description down below. My name is Paul C. This is WPTuts, and until next time, take care.